All right, welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at the in operator for SQL. So the in operator can be used in a where clause predicate when you're attempting to see if the value of a column is from a list of provided values. If the value in the column falls into the list that you provide, as you can see down here, here's a list, then the predicate returns true. Otherwise, the predicate returns false. So as we're going through the countries, in this example, as we're going through the countries, we're checking to see, is Turkey in the list? Yes, it is. So it ends up in the output. Then we check USA. USA is not in this list, so it's not put in the output. France is in the list, so it ends up in the output. Poland, not in the list. And Brazil, not in the list. So the source of the values that we're comparing against can be from a comma-separated list of literals, like you saw in the previous example, or the result of a subquery that returns a single column of values. So here's two examples below. So if I had a table that was students, and let's say it had a ID, name, and year column, then as I was going through and evaluating each row, so let me put some sample data, 1, Sam, 2, let's say 2, Bob, 4, as it would be going through and evaluating each row, as the query would be, we'd be looking to see if year is in 2 or 3. So this would return that row, the first row from the table. If I look over at the example on the right, this is a bit more complicated. So imagine that I had a table courses. Let's maybe say it just had, for simplicity purposes, name and expected year. So maybe that means, the year that the course was planned to be taken by a particular student. So let's say this was programming, and its expected year was 2. But we also need course num. So let's say course num was 2,500. Let's say we have 3,200 databases. Expected year 4. So we might want to check to see how many students or what students are currently in years related to the courses that we expect students to take. So in this query, the inner query, or the nested query, or the subquery, is going to return a column that's expected year. The attribute's going to be called expected year. And it would have whatever years for the course numbers that are less than 3,000. So let's just say that's 1 and 2. And then the outer query would go to the students table and check to see if the year attribute was in whatever values returned from the nested query, in this case 1 and 2. So here's the simplified version of the Northwind database. And we're going to start with a fairly simple query. Which products are supplied by Acme Co. or Cheese for All? Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can come up with a query for this. Okay, so if we think about products and who supplies them, looking at our database schema, we know that we're going to be able to get the name of the company from the supplier name, so in the suppliers table, and we want a product name. I mean, I'm not specific here, but let's just assume this is product name that's being asked for. So that would come from here. okay? So there's obviously more than one way to write this query. You don't have to use a nested query or an in or anything fancy like that. But let's just go ahead and try with a nested with an in operator. So I could say select product name, and that's coming from products. Okay. And we want the products that are supplied by Acme. So we would want the products. So what links suppliers and products is supplier ID. So I'm going to select from products where supplier ID is in. Okay, so if I'm going to do an in, I could either give it a comma-separated list of literals, or in this case, I'm going to provide a nested query. So I want where supplier ID in select, I'm going to kind of line wrap here, select supplier ID from suppliers where supplier name I'm kind of running out of space, sorry, in, let me move this around a little bit. Supplier name in Acme Co, comma, cheese for all. Okay, so this closes that one, and then this one is going to close that one, and so then I'm good here. These are single quotes, by the way. Okay, so thinking about this, the inner query, so this one, is going to return a set of supplier IDs. So we would have a table that's supplier ID via a result that has just one column, supplier ID, and it's going to be whatever supplier IDs are equal to where the supplier name is equal to Acme Co or Cheese for All. So it's going to have, probably just two supplier IDs because we only have two companies. And then it's going to go to the products table and it's going to select all products name. So the result of the outer query is going to have just a product name attribute. And it's going to have whatever products names have a supplier ID that comes from the list we got from the nested query. All right, here's another one. So which suppliers provide products to Northwind that are in the category of beverages or condiments? And I'm going to make a copy of this slide real quick because I'm going to kind of do it in two stages. Well, maybe I am. There we go. Okay, so which suppliers provide products in Northwind that are in the category of beverages or condiments? So when I think about this, I'm going to start with kind of what the specific information I have, and that's going to be, I'm looking at beverages and condiments. So where's that information going to come from, or where am I going to be able to search for beverages and condiments? And that's going to be in category name. So those are the names of categories. So working sort of inside out, let's think about what the nested query might be for this. Okay, so we could say select category ID because that's what's going to link us to products. So category ID is what links to category ID and products. But for now, we're just working with the categories table. So select category ID from categories where category name in, sorry, there's not really a space here. I'm going to provide the list here in beverages, comma, condiments, semicolon. So this would give us a relation, a table that has category ID column. And it's going to have a collection of category IDs that go with these two categories. Okay, so if we now look at the full query, we're trying to get suppliers, and let's assume that it's supplier name, and we want the suppliers that provide products, so we're going to have to go to the products table somehow that are in the categories, which is what we did on the previous slide. So let's see if we can knock this out. So I'm going to try and fit it all here. So select, we're going to want supplier name, from suppliers where supplier ID, and I'm going to use a nested query to get the set of supplier IDs from products whose category ID is in what we got from the previous query. So where supplier ID in, here's my first nested query, select supplier ID from products where category ID is in, and now I'm going to basically do the query from the previous slide, and it's going to be select category ID from categories where category name is in, and my list of in is beverages, condiments. And so I think I put the semicolon too soon. So this closes this one, and then we need one to close this one, and then we need one more. Let's see, that was terrible. Let's put one more big one that closes this one. And then of course there's a semicolon, but I can't put it because of the page numbers. So there you go.